do we want to just maybe do a little outline of who's who and how do we know each other and that type of thing?
Yeah.
Why don't we start with you, Paul, and we'll test out your internet here.
All right, then. Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Yes, Paul Dodd. I have known Mike for probably close to 24 years. So when we first met, Mike was barely out of school, just fumbling around internet support, desktop support, but obviously destined for great things. Him and his colleague went off and did some phenomenal new business initiative. I equally went off and did one specifically in the human capital market, and sold my business 5-6 years ago to a US firm, and they sort of kept me on with my dusty beard to be the grandfather of their client engagement here. I equally lead a number of roundtables and online discussions around how to engage, how to get the most out of and develop talent acquisition programs, and more importantly, dovetail that into build and buy type programs for organizations. So when Mike and I were talking about, must have been a couple of months ago now, around, you know, what resonated with customers, what resonated with like-minded people, you know, we were right at the forefront of the Great Resignation and what did that mean, and equally, you know, some extraordinary GDP growth over the last year. So how do people match into that opportunity? What can organizations do to leverage a more effective sales and marketing force? So that's sort of where Mike and I were tripping into. Wouldn't it be good if, and sort of leveraging some of my human capital stuff, but leveraging some of your business expertise to see whether there was something that would resonate with listeners such they go, oh, that's a really good idea. Let me try that with my stakeholders, or this is how I could approach my straw man, my people, my process, my platform to be more efficient in the market. Is that about right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you hear me?
We could, yeah. You glitched out only for like a little bit, so it sounded pretty good. Do we
Probably
want to
when
go
I said I was gorgeous and had all that type of finagle, yeah. But
yeah. Well, we're gonna edit that out anyway, so don't worry about that. Do you want to go with Linda maybe next?
Oh, sure. So Linda Tobias, I'm VP of Corporate Marketing for Global Benefits Group. I've been with the company, it'll be 2 years in September. Prior to that, most of my career was with Verizon, probably 100 years with Verizon. I took a voluntary package about 3 or 4 years ago, and, you know, really just took a leap of faith and said, you know, I'm going to go from this great company, very secure, great benefits, and see what else I can do, and maybe work for a smaller company and make, you know, more of a difference. And that's exactly what I did. I went from 140,000 employees to a company of 450 employees, and I absolutely have no regrets. I love it. I love the fact that I kind of have my hands in everything from a marketing perspective. Where at Verizon, you know, I was a jack of all trades, master, you know, of none, sort of, so to speak. They kind of many different cooks in the kitchen, all doing the same thing. But here it's really nice that, you know, I have the opportunity to do so much, from creating a brand new brand and website, and just recently started with working with Goose Digital. So that really is what brought me to this podcast today. And Goose, one of the reasons we picked Goose is because of your experience working with insurance companies. And, you know, I've had the pleasure of working with Jen and Robin on your team, and Chris, who are fantastic. And we're working on a lot of great initiatives. One of which is, to Paul's point, like really leveraging that marketing and sales relationship and how we can bring it together closer with a, you know, a better CRM marketing tool solution. So anyway, I appreciate the invite, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's great info, or great intro, sorry. Sarah.
Yeah, so I'm Sarah Flusky. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Nova Healthcare Administrators. We're a third-party administrator in the States. And my team manages internal and external communications and company marketing and branding. So it's it's where all the creative brains sit. And we had an opportunity to change up the marketing platform that we were using was not functioning for us very well. So we had transitioned to Act-On, and as a part of transitioning to Act-On, they have this really great package to set you up to be successful. And it included this wonderful guy named Steven from Act-On, or from Goose, sorry, that walked us through how to build stuff out in Act-On, not just for it to be successful, but in a way that like made sense for whoever walked into the room and could pick up the job from there. He just did such a brilliant job. And I was like, I need to hire this guy to do it over on our end. And so we ended up talking. And one of the things that your team does really well is you have kind of the science end of the marketing, the statistical, I have a lot of creative brains on my side. So identifying where we're strong and where we can leverage some of your services, it was just a really great match because it gives us different ways to sort of think about what we're doing on our side. And I've been with Nova for 10 years. So I have sort of watched a lot of evolution on our side. And before that, I worked in fundraising and event planning. And fundraising is essentially sales with no ROI, but warm and fuzzy. So selling an actual thing is a delight.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, that was great, Sarah. Great intro. So this is a good panel, frankly. Really happy to be with you guys. So I'm the founder of Goose Digital. And yes, know Paul from a long time ago. We already covered that. And very grateful for his support over the years. But when I started Goose Digital, it was really about some of the work that Paul referred to. I was leading a company as the president through some pretty accelerated sales and marketing growth. So after that sort of successful exit and being with the company, I thought, well, could we do this for others? And is there a way for us to compartmentalize the types of things that we were putting together for that organization and offer it up? We know what an agency is. We've all probably used agencies in a variety of forms, but we wanted to be a little more analytical, I guess, coming from more of the technical side, but then marrying that with the creative. So yeah, that's what we're about. And thank you both for being customers. What we want to really hone in on is, how are we being brought into deals? So when I spoke to Paul about this concept, we started to see this trend where many of our customers come to us when there's a change in personnel. So it could be at the sort of more tactical level, managerial tactical level, like lower level manager level or tactical resource level, or it could be when a department head comes in and they're like, okay, I'm ready to set up my department, and as a result, I don't have all the capabilities that I need on the ground. And this sort of was pretty common, I guess you could say, as an outsourcing concept for an agency. But it started to accelerate over the pandemic, and then of course now through the Great Resignation. So it just dawned on me as a marketer and as a business owner that when we're brought in, we're seeing how organizations are kind of stalled out. We now lost our director of marketing, and maybe one of their people went with them, and now we're in this position where we're sort of in a rebuild mode. I mean, I guess, Sarah, you've been at your organization for a while now. And Linda, you mentioned you've been with the organization for how long?
It'll be 2 years in September.
So 2 years. So, you're kind of in that actually realm of sort of building out your organization, your team. But I think for most of our clients, they don't have massive marketing teams. We're not integrating with people that have 75 people on the team and they can afford to lose a body or two, no big deal. Like, these are companies that, even big ones, have scarce marketing resources. I think you guys could probably attest to that as well. So it just was, when we were looking at this kind of concept of like, how are marketing leaders dealing with that? First of all, what is going on? And I put some numbers together, like, what are you guys seeing? And if you want, we can just kind of go right into the format, because I think quality wise, we're feeling pretty good about how you're doing, Paul. So why don't we just endeavor to move right into this? Does that sound good?
Yeah. Let's move ahead.
Okay. So the first area really that we wanted to explore was, I'm sure we're all in the market looking for people. We're all kind of, what are we seeing from the market right now? Like, what are we seeing in terms of resignations, job openings, trying to find people? Like, maybe we'll go to whoever wants to put their hand up first. Paul, this is okay, Linda, it's you.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. So when I came into GBG, I needed to hire my team. So I had the privilege or the pleasure of recruiting somebody that I worked with at Verizon. She was a rock star. She's an amazing graphic designer, and I was very fortunate to be able to hire her. So she was my first hire. And then my North America region, I had a couple marketers in that region, and the lead salesperson left, followed by my marketing director, followed by my marketing coordinator. So I had 2 positions that I needed to backfill, and it literally took me months, and I just was not getting any qualified candidates. And I kept working with HR. They kept pushing out the job rec on LinkedIn and other platforms, and the caliber and quality of the marketing people just weren't there. It's hard to find someone that has both the marketing experience and the insurance experience. So it was definitely a struggle. I would say it took me like 4 months to backfill those positions, and I'm really happy with the positions. But then then I opened up another position for a content writer. Again, I had the same situation. I just could not. The number of applicants was very, very low, and the quality and caliber of their skill set just was not what I was looking for. And then to find somebody that could write from a marketing standpoint and also have that insurance knowledge was almost impossible to find.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, it was so anyway, so fortunately, we've been outsourcing different marketing requirements, and we've been working with Goose. So Goose has kind of stepped in, and we've been using a content writer, I guess a freelance person on your team. So that's kind of the path.
And we had the same challenge, like frankly, finding, what you're looking for there, at least from the combination of industry plus strong writing skills.
Yeah.
So you had the situation of people leaving and taking a while. Is that 4 month, Paul? Are you seeing, like, what is that from a timing? Like, is that normal? Is that longer?
Yeah. So, if anything, 4 months is fairly good in today's market, simply because what we've exhibited, or rather what we've been able to see over the last 18 months, 2 years, is that the first 6 months of COVID kicking in really put the brakes on everyone, because no one really knew what they were dealing with. This pandemic thing, people working from home, organizations changing how they were going to operate. But then what happened, I would have said end of 2020, going to 21, was that it suddenly became, digital became a reality, because people had to move from being a digital plan for around 3 to 5 years to being a digital implementation in 5 months. And as such, moving into a digital platform from bricks and mortar or any kind of foot soldier sales and marketing type capability became very urgent, because the opportunity was huge. So then what happened was that, and especially in financial services and or healthcare, which you're both sort of stepping into to some degree, everyone was chasing the same talent. And what happened was that it was never about an applicant finding you, but you going out to find the applicants, because if you didn't, you'd be waiting for an eternity for these people to be turning up. There was an old Chinese proverb, the man that waits for roast duck to fly through the window is going to be waiting a long time and get very hungry. And I think that's so true of this talent market in the last, I would say, 6 to 12 months. So, what we were seeing is not just the time to hire was increasing because the lack of applicants that were coming through or can identify, but you actually ended up competing for the same talent 5 times over. So and the other problem that you were going to see was ghosting. So it'd be okay getting to a great candidate in, let's just say, 10 days, but then because another 10 organizations were chasing them, they drop out of the conversation and they're nowhere to be found.
Right.
So that became very frustrating because then the process had to start all over again. So you had this conundrum of not just whether you could get the talent, but could you keep it engaged with your value prop? So this feeds straight back into marketing because you had to have your marketing prop up front and engaging.
Yeah.
Would they stay engaged and did they want to work for you? So your EVP became as powerful employment value proposition as your marketing brand. And you had to have them both tight and you had to have them very lucid and the business had to pull together to do things quickly. I'm sorry, did I probably...
No, that's, I think, no, you didn't waste anything. That was great. Sarah, what have you seen in that realm of and yourself in your role?
So fortunately, I don't know how I feel lucky. So we only lost one person from our team since the pandemic started, and really it was youthful opportunity. She had a chance to move someplace, and it was, you can't deny somebody a growth opportunity just because you want them to stay. So she is flourishing where she is, but it put us in the position of needing to hire. And thankfully it was an entry-level role, or, the hole in our team allowed us to sort of reevaluate. Are we going to plug the hole, or are we going to look at the capabilities we have, where we need to go, and is there opportunity to make some change to the way that we're structured? So one of the things that we did, during COVID, is still going on, that was to sort of evaluate what do we actually need people to be doing. So we did a lot of restructuring with the people that we've got to identify how we can use the talent we have maybe differently, and then sort of fill a different role. And we were able to find somebody, but to Linda's point, to bring somebody in who knows, self-funded medical benefit plans and reimbursement. I mean, the acronyms alone would kill somebody. So, it was fortunate for us from a marketing perspective that it was an entry-level role, because I can take will and hard work and good intent. And if you have the ability to write, then I can teach you the industry stuff. We have the capacity to do that. More globally, though, we have experienced a lot of turnover at the company, but I will say when we compare it to sort of benchmark where other companies are nationally, it's not that bad.
Yeah,
so
because I mean, on average, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one of our biggest challenges was we had a really involved and engaged on-site culture. So the biggest challenge for us in terms of the value prop of keeping somebody at a job, what makes this employer great, was trying to figure out how you relay all that stuff in a more virtual environment so that people still feel that same connectedness to each other and the team.
Yeah, and I think that I want to talk about that, specifically that point for a second. But before we get there, I just wanted to kind of underscore, I did look at that CMO survey that was published Feb 2022. So this year, it was kind of just before all hell broke loose in the economy, but still they was comparing year over year. And they did say that like average was 11% for the voluntary resignations, and then as you got into different company sizes and verticals, it was way more. So I wanted to find out if you guys had any indication as to sort of what was driving that change, at least from your perspective. And I think the remote versus hybrid might be part of it. I looked at the LinkedIn jobs for a few of those roles that I put in the document, and I switched them to remote, like 100% remote. And just back of a napkin, like I didn't do the math, it looked to me about 30% of those jobs were 100% remote. So if you've got 137,000 marketing manager jobs out there right now in the US, 30% of them, they're no problem if you're 100% remote. So I just wanted to get a sense, like from you guys, how are you feeling about that? Like getting back to a company culture, how do you do that? And what's going to maybe drive people away from an organization if they want to be 100% remote? Linda, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. So, my company pivoted really fast as most companies did during the pandemic, and we got everyone working from home, and we've structured a really good hybrid policy. So we are now back in the offices, but typically it's 2 days a week. So it's 3 days home, 2 days in the office. And again, that's very flexible. It's really based on the needs of the employees. But I do know we did lose one of our marketing people because she wanted to stay 100% remote. And this is before we even really reenacted the back in the office policies. So I know
Right.
the younger generations, they really want that. They want that whole remote thing. Now I'm from an older generation. I'm used to being in the office.
Mhm.
I thrive on being around people. I just think it's better for, just to connect with people, for creativity, inspiration, whatever. But that said, I also love working from home. So for me, the flexibility to do a little bit of both just works better for me. But I think for the most part, my company's done a really, really good job trying to balance and find that middle ground for our employees. And we really haven't lost that many employees, as a result, the great resignation, if you want to call it that.
Who else wants to chip in on that remote
Yeah,
as
no,
a driver?
Mike, you alluded to, I do love data. And, when you peel back the layers on this conversation, the great resignation was one thing. And I do think probably you were about right, around 11, 12% from what would have been a norm of around 7 to 8%. So an increase of 4%, but 50% from where we would have been normally in terms of attrition. But what people are not understanding is there is a significant level of growth that organizations have gone through. And we're talking anywhere between 30 and 80% growth in the last 18 months, just because they were able to embrace a digital platform. So attrition actually pales into insignificance when you look at the growth opportunity. The other thing to keep in mind is that where everyone has seen this growth in GDP, obviously sales and marketing have to keep in lockstep with it. But what does that really mean from a capability perspective? Because we are seeing a small swing of the pendulum, but it is only a small one, because we've also got another dilemma right now, which is whilst inflation is obviously at an all-time high, we've also got job openings in lockstep, which is an anomaly, because with a recession or an impending recession stroke, inflationary position, jobs drop off the scale, and it becomes something in and around, let's just say 4 or 5%, as opposed to being 12, 13, 14%, which they are right now. So what we're expecting is this to be a very short-lived recession, and something that we're going to digitally manage. I hate to use that phrase again, but that's an enormous opportunity. So I'm going to play back into the Goose, or rather to your business advantages right now, because there simply isn't enough headcount to go around. And if you've got I'm going to say an outsourced partner or an augmentation capability with someone like a Goose, that allows you to be a lot more agile and be a lot more nimble, not with just your capacity, but the capability, because the new capability you're going to need to get into social influencing, you're going to need to do to get into some of the other below the line type marketing initiatives, are going to be phenomenally met by a partner, as opposed to you trying to buy the talent, because it isn't available.
Yeah, I mean, that was another thing that the study alluded to, that, I think it was one of the higher percentages that they were tracking. Basically, they asked if marketers, prefer to build the capabilities internally. So it always hovers around 50-ish%, but it was up at around 59, where they want to build out their teams. And I think maybe to your point, the attrition rate, it's kind of hard to really only look at that when you also see the growth rate that a lot of organizations have experienced. It's even worse, in fact, in many ways. So it's not that they don't want to use an agency, is this that, you know, they would like to build out internal capabilities if possible. So having agency partners can definitely support that. What about, can we talk a little bit about what you guys have seen maybe today or in past lives? I realize this may be something that, Paul, you get brought in for because, you know, you're an avenue for organizations to sort of solve for the talent gap. But when it's a marketing function, let's focus maybe more on marketing, even though we know at the senior levels, it really is a marketing and sales partnership that needs to be in place. What's the impact that you've seen on either your organization or places that you've been in the past where you don't have the ability to deliver against your marketing plan, or maybe even now you're trying to stack up and you don't have enough resource available to you?
I'd love to jump in here because I've got what I think is a golden bullet with this one. But
okay,
I think one of the most significant issues that our customers are coming up against, and whether it's one of the big four advisory firms, whether it's a bank or whether it's an insurance company or whether it's someone in retail, is I'm going to call pay and equity. So, there's no problem with me going away and buying net new talent, but it's costing me anywhere between 25 and 40% more than it was going to do a year and a half, 2 years ago. So if I've got a budget, which the business normally hasn't kept in lockstep, it hasn't accommodated for that 40% uplift. So that's not necessarily an issue because you'll find someone that can take the job. But the problem is that you then upset your existing workforce. So when you're bringing in net new people that are costing
paid more money,
30% more, your existing workforce is saying, well, what about me? Because the internal mechanisms aren't efficient enough to improve their salary band by 25% more. So sometimes you're able to offset some of that frustration with an external vendor because they're coming in, again, below the line, but to provide a service as opposed to illustrate where the compensation levels are awry. But we find that is probably the number one driver today for having an external vendor in play. So as they're not effective.
Yeah, I mean, like our fees, that's a really good point. Just to think about that for a second. Our fees haven't gone up at all, frankly, not to mention
you should charge more than mine.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. That seems to be very interesting here. But hiring, I guess where I was looking to go with this is obviously like, forget about like the current state of things. Even 3 years ago, we were all under huge demands to drive growth, right? Marketing has to contribute to the growth of an organization. So the point here was, if we can't have talent that we can rely on to be with us for a period of time, and even when we bring them in, like, how do you get somebody up to speed? How do you take maybe, the person that you're bringing on, Sarah, you talked about a process by which they're talented and then trained. Like, at what point can you say, yeah, we're back to kind of like a capability level that I can feel comfortable with to drive the business forward? Is that 6 months? Is that 3 months? It's complex. There's business, but it's reality, right? Like we're going to the board or the business and saying, we're going to maintain a level of target here, but I've just turned over portions of my team and they're not up to speed yet. So how do I do that?
Depends on the whole. I think it depends on what you're trying to fill. And then to Paul's point, what can you outsource to a partner agency? So if I've got enough of the writers that can speak my language, that know how to sell our product, our solution, if they have enough of that vantage point, there are things I know we could use Goose, another company to help us with these other pieces that we don't have the time or talent to manage at this point, instead of bringing in somebody new and then trying to get them to learn a whole system. And it's not even a whole I've tried to plug, because we're going through the process of your team actually supporting us and using tools better. So that's part of our sort of ongoing enrichment. So as I was talking about, if we lost one associate, sort of reconfigured the way the work was managed in the department. We had an associate who was an entry-level associate that we moved into a role to manage digital marketing. So they already have a really strong skill set and being able to understand systems and functionality. But with the partnership with your team, it was sort of able to give her a level of confidence that there was a safety net and how to use the things. She had a place to kind of bounce ideas off of to make sure she was using it right. So it's giving her a growth opportunity, and it's bringing her up to speed. If we ever lost her, the idea of trying to replace that role with somebody that understands the systems I'm using, like Linda was saying, somebody that understands the technical language. If I want one person who knows Acton and everybody else is in HubSpot and Pardot, and are they not qualified? Like now I've taken the narrow pool and I've narrowed the lane even further. But that's where, I mean, honestly, and I know this is not like a big Goose plug, but that's where I would say, okay, here's another opportunity to outsource some of my work until we get up to speed, and then I can bring somebody on. Because in a system like that, you're talking about, I feel like you're talking about a lot longer lead time than learning, how we're talking about our product or how we're positioning ourselves normally at the website.
Sure.
I would agree. And, from my perspective, we're a small, scrappy marketing organization. I have 7 marketing people on my team.
Hi, Linda.
Supporting, 4 regions, 3 divisions, and we only have so much bandwidth to do what we can do. And we also only have so much skill set. So I need to supplement that skill set by bringing in different vendors and hiring partners that have the knowledge and the expertise that can get us to the next level. So, we started this new marketing platform, Acton, in January of 2021. It was new to my team. It was pretty easy to get accustomed to it, but we needed to go deeper and wider within the tool, and we just didn't have the expertise to do that. And one of the great things about partnering with Goose is you really do have the talent on your team that is very conversant in Acton, and they're really helping us to develop those customer journeys and those landing pages and the automation that we just don't know how to set up. So your team is helping us to get to the next level so that we can kind of hopefully take over and start doing customer journeys eventually, and then kind of move into the other areas where we need guidance and recommendations.
And I think this is a good area to actually place here, the 5 people, the 7 people. I mean, what you're both already doing, and it makes sense. I mean, you're customers of ours, so it would make sense that you're already aligned to this kind of strategic augmentation concept. But you're saying, a full-time high-level automation resource, we don't have 40 hours a week of full-time, we don't have that here. Maybe if we were some massive organization that was running 13 instances of Acton, then maybe we would, right? So you're kind of looking at those things, well, that's not quite a full-time job, but it's really difficult. That's not quite a full-time job, but it's really difficult, like some of the ads and stuff that you were referring to, Sarah. So let's make sure there's somebody that can backhaul that. But then you say you got the 7 and the 5, and they're business oriented. They're the ones that we always say, like, keep those product marketers, keep those content people, keep them in-house. Like, don't hire somebody that knows how to work Google, but get them to understand your business, how to connect with your customers. So the next area that I want to talk to is like, how can we be doing better if we know, to Paul's point, it's competitive, potentially even more salary, potentially full-time remote. We don't know what's going to come at us. We got 7 people, we got 5 people. We want to keep these people. What can we be doing to sort of hold on to our people over the next 2 years so that, frankly, we can get momentum in these marketing programs that you guys are trying to put forward? So I don't know if you guys have ideas now, or Paul, if you have industry, what people are doing.
I think, look at the talent management conundrum, which is, build or buy. And, I've just come off a conversation with a roll-up right now that's buying anywhere between 7 and 10 2-man, 5-man operations a month. And the issue that he's got with his team is that, to your point, he needs to keep them, but they want to do more valuable work. They want to do things which are more interesting. So he needs to move them from being in the business to being on the business. and being engaged to look at that straw man, the people, process, and platform, and be able to really make a difference and move the dial, because that's the stuff that's strategic and keeps them engaged. But what that means is that he's taking them away from the tactical stuff, the meat and potatoes. How do I do this? What do I do? And turning out some of the copy, turning out some of the searches, turning out some of the digital initiatives. And I think that's really what the opportunity is here in the marketing function, is taking your existing people, giving them really solid career plans, helping them to move to the next level. And if there is some sort of humdrum, or more importantly, repetitive work, moving it off to the partners such that they can be keeping the marketing machine running whilst your people are getting more meaningfully engaged with some of the bigger, brighter aspects of the function. And we're seeing that probably happen 50 to 60, let's say 50 to 65% of the time right now, because otherwise, if they don't give them career path, if they don't give them development ops, they will go somewhere else, because it makes sense. But you know, it's unfortunately it's a candidate and employee market today.
So we're hearing, you know, one of the keys to retaining the team right now is career paths.
Yes.
Do you guys, I think, I don't know if it was both of you talked about training and development. First of all, comment on career paths. Like, do you guys is that a challenge for you to maintain a career path? I mean, at some point your marketing teams are only as big as they're going to be. So, I mean, will we talk a little bit about like a career path in the marketing function?
You want to start, Linda?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're absolutely right, Michael. You know, our marketing organization is small, but there is definitely room to grow. You know, we bring in people, so we have a couple of our entry-level marketing people right out of college that we recruited. So there definitely is room to grow, and GBG has a really great training program. We're very much into you know, leadership training. We just launched a program last year called Bonfire Leadership. It's more of a woman's leadership development program, but that's more at the higher level. But it's been very well received with our middle to upper management women. You know, we're in the process of implementing a recognition program, because you know, we feel that it's important to recognize our employees. So this is more of a peer-to-peer recognition program, and we're tying it into our core values. So one of the things that I initiated last year when I came on board was, you know, creating and developing core values that really aligned with our culture. So we rolled that out with our new brand earlier this year, and now we're doing this recognition program. So as employees can recognize their peers and kind of tie it into one of the three pillars of our recognition. We're also, I work very closely with HR in my role, as I'm sure you do too, Sarah, if you're doing internal communications. So one of the other things that we're in development is an onboarding page. So we want to make sure as we recruit employees that we set them off, we set them up on the right path, and that they have the training and the knowledge to start, you know, day one with the information they need to be successful. And it's we're developing this ongoing program to give them, you know, everything they need, from who's who in the organization, what do we sell, what's the organizational structure, here's your training and development program. So you know, hopefully not only will it be good as we recruit, but also good for retention purposes and to get our employees more engaged. You know, we're also doing the employee advocacy to get our employees more engaged and to help them understand the GBG brand and to amplify the message. So we're just doing a lot of, you know, what I'm hoping is more creative, inspirational ways to increase that employee engagement.
Sarah, did you want to weigh in?
All of what Linda said. We have, you know, an employee recognition program, which we pivoted since everybody went home in March of 2020, because the way it existed in a very in-person format wasn't functioning quite the same way. So we made some changes to that over the last year. somebody just started a Share a Smile campaign, and randomly they'll show up in your Microsoft Teams that somebody in the building has shared a smile with somebody that you don't even know. And the whole point is to try and build engagement while we're still, having a lot of associates in a remote workplace, because we are remaining remote with on-site capabilities. So we have a lot of associates who elect to go into the office. We have a lot of associates that choose to go in part-time, and then there are some that just prefer the environment to be in there full-time. So there's a ton of flexibility for us in terms of,
Wow.
where they can sit and where they're going to work, because one of the things that we discovered when everybody went home was that everything was still functioning quite fine. Where it is difficult is that onboarding and then retention, because you don't get to meet people in the same sense and build that sort of camaraderie that you might have had in the office space before. So trying to figure out, what does that look like? We have 4 internal associate-led committees around health and wellness initiatives, around associate engagement and brand ambassadors that sort of do exactly what Linda was talking about to help us promote the brand and encourage, a great culture. We have a diversity council. All of these put associates in leadership roles and leading those, so where they might not have ordinarily led a team. So they're, it isn't always just growth on our team, and we do look for opportunities to do that where the path doesn't look as evident when you're in a smaller company. But also finding opportunities, because you can't, that double-edged sword of, you can't be a manager without having been a manager. You can't lead a project without having led a project. So we, work internally with these committees that we have that are associate-led, to give them the experience of minute taking, leading meetings, running functions, coordinating things across departments, because the people are across departments. So it's the same sort of, a lot of investment in associate development and growth, that may be a little more informal than formal, in terms of, here's lockstep exactly where your next job would be, and that's all you can do. So it's been very creative over the last 2 years.
Before the pandemic, we were on this path, and probably for a while. I mean, I don't really, Paul would probably know more, you guys might know more exactly when this trend really got going, but around having a purpose, around your organization, and seeing a lot more emphasis put on mental health, and even employee engagement and recognition. That's been around for a while, but really kind of that being something that around my business leader communities. I mean, these are things that people are talking about. It just seems like now that's really, people have had to rethink those because of the pandemic. Like you said, a lot of it was in office, and now it's kind of hybrid mix, so we can't do the same thing we used to do. But even more than that, I think in this heightened kind of employee driven market, or what do you call it, like where it is an employee market to a large degree, without those things, your business now is not it's at a disadvantage, because to your point, they start with you, they realize, well, wait, I don't have proper onboarding. Where's the recognition? They're not really focused. They just want leads. It's drive. I'm getting burnout. I'll just go on to the next organization that has these things taken care of. So that's huge.
Yeah, we had a formal dress down program. So you would donate $10 a month to a charity, and we would collect, well over $1,000 a month for different charities. There was a process how they got selected. And then we moved home and everybody was dressed down.
Oh, that's so
So we were like,
those clothes back.
So in 2020, it sort of lived on the way that it was living, but then we needed to rethink for 2021, not knowing, you have to communicate before you get into that year. So how do we convince people that they need to pay to dress down so that we can do, continue the charity work that we do?
Sure.
Because that's something that resonates with associates. They appreciate the opportunity to be able
involved.
to support nonprofit organizations. So I feel like so many things have changed as it relates to how you engage with associates and how they find value in your workplace, and how they find connectedness with each other and then with their team, and understand all the product and system and brand issues that you have going on.
So I feel like we've covered the bulk of the sections team. I really do. I think we can probably maybe move to kind of wrap up, just a little discussion on the wrap up, so I can summarize a few of these areas. I think the last section, talking about augmentation with an agency or an outsourced provider, I think we've got. I would like to hear a little bit more from Paul on, if you lose a senior marketer, and I think, you've maybe not so much recently, Sarah, because you've been in the role for a while now, but maybe Linda, coming to this organization, that big change that you had, this is probably something here for you, but we are getting involved in businesses and many of our clients, as well as pipeline opportunities, that senior leaders just leave. They've changed roles, and now everything stops. Marketing is affected. The growth of the organization could be affected. So I think the two things. One, I'd like to just talk about maybe some advice to senior lead, other senior leaders, if they're looking at their next move, what to look for. Maybe this is a little bit more from your perspective, Linda, but also Sarah, being in an organization for a while. And then Paul, how is your organization helping companies, find and I guess, manage the talent process? So could we take it to the marketers first and then go back to Paul? Is that okay?
Sure. Makes sense. Yeah.
So maybe we'll start with you, Linda, being that you did make a fairly recent change. Talk to us a little bit about what that's like, and what, the impact is for you as a senior marketer, and what advice you might have if someone's making that change.
Yeah. So good question. So when I left Verizon, I did take a couple stints, heading up marketing at a manufacturing company before I moved into GBG, heading up their insurance. So for me, it was really just trying to find that fit where it made sense. And I did want to go with a smaller company. I had been with a bigger bureaucratic company. I really wanted to be with a company where I had more of an impact. And so I think being with a smaller organization gave me that opportunity. And I think just really having the ability to, I wouldn't say necessarily to move around, but really just the opportunity to do what you love. And for me, it's I'm not just focused on one aspect of marketing. It really is a well-rounded position for me. I guess one of the things that I am challenged with slightly is being the head of marketing in a smaller company. The buck kind of stops here. So where do I get my learnings from? And I do a lot of reading and industry publications, and I do rely on my business partners, like Goose and my other agency that helped develop our brand. But I do feel like it's important to have that continued learning, especially when you're not really getting it from a marketing, this is not a marketing organization. This is an insurance organization. So how do I continue with my knowledge base and continue getting those best practices? So I get a ton of stuff from vendors. I'm always meeting with various vendors to learn new technology. But where do you guys, and maybe this is more of a question for Sarah, where do you, how do you stay on top of the trends and marketing? And is there a particular organization or trade show? Because I get flooded with, attend this, but I don't have a huge marketing budget to go to a million different events. But I would like to go to one, premier event where I hear the top trending things on email marketing and SEO and social media and employee engagement and communication. So what is it, what do you do to kind of stay on top of your game?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because it's one of the priorities that I have is to not have a 17-year-old know more about social media than me, right? Yep. So when you're in marketing, it's 9 million different things. It's SEO, it's brand, we manage a lot of the admin end of our website internally. It's, email marketing, it's drip campaigns, it's the look and feel and sound of your brand, it's working with sales and partnership to find out where is the best opportunity for you to be present to generate leads. There are so many things that fall under the house that actually become like the day-to-day work. But I do feel like if you don't stay on top of it, you just fall so far behind it. And that's where I feel like you said, between your marketing partner and then working with Goose, trying to really understand how they view how to use and optimize the technologies we've got to use them to the best of our ability. I feel like that's with each of the partners that we have, it's like it takes what you do and kind of pluses it up. So it
Sure.
enables us to, without hiring a whole person who might have this very niche expertise, to sort of take us to the next level where we can't get ourselves because we don't have that depth, but we have really good breadth. So there's, my inbox is flooded. I read so many white papers and so many news articles, and I have like a running list of things that I flag, and I don't move them out of my, I'll never get to inbox zero. There's just things hanging out there that I want to consume because, there's so much great knowledge out there about, how to use these tools and best practices, and to get a lot of different perspectives, because I don't know if any one is right. You find the right thing, but it's
Sure. Yeah, and
so
you got to
much-
test, and you have to try it out for your own business too. So we have a 10-year marketing leader, 10 years at the organization, longer obviously, 2-year, but you had a little stint, you said, which means you clearly tested the waters and wasn't good, and now it seems like we're in a place where this is aligned to your vision too. But even still, I mean, you guys might be in industries that fare a lot better than others, but we see some turnover in the senior level of marketers. So that's really great that you both feel like you're in an organization that is aligned with you and your personal objectives. So maybe we can let Paul weigh in on the senior marketer conversation. You have somebody that need, like maybe, this example that you had, you went into an organization, clearly weren't aligned. There's a ton of pressure put on these teams, maybe not your organizations. Like, I'm not sure the demands from a growth perspective that get put on you guys, but oftentimes they're kind of unrealistic demands that get put on these teams. So you've got movement at the senior levels, not because they're being let go, but just because they're like, you guys aren't reasonable. Like, I can't hit 50% growth. Like, it's not going to happen. Not to mention my team is turning over underneath me. Like, what do you want from me? So like, how does this work maybe at the senior level? And then we could wrap up the conversation there, Paul.
Sure. And if I start to wonder, by the way, Linda, Sarah, like, by all means jump in and come over the top. But one of the critical things that happened with COVID and then moving into what I'm going to call the great growth before the great resignation was that leadership were in a bit of a quandary. They had behaved a certain way. They had a certain purpose. The business had certain values, but it quickly became outdated within the first 6 months of 2020. So what happened was that everyone raced, along with digitizing their business, to reinvent, or rather reconfigure, their purpose and values. And as such, because they were managing remotely, they were trying to be authentic, they were trying to be mindful. Mike, you had mentioned this earlier around wellness, but for some reason it was sort of missing, or there was some friction in the business, and they just weren't being authentic to their employee groups, and the employees were sensing a misalignment. Now, that being said, what also happened was that we found an awful lot of salespeople, marketing people, or finding a marketing voice, and they're able to attract the attention of some of these people that were getting discombobulated by their existing employers and were pulling them over. But here comes the opportunity. So not only is there and you spoke to this earlier, Linda, but the opportunity to create a marketing program or put marketing around the onboarding of employees. So you're creating this employee experience but you also need to extend that earlier into the process so you have a better candidate experience. Because that way you're able to filter people that really do want to be aligned with your purpose and that are going to behave in a similar fashion to the values you purport to have. But here's the difference. You also need to have an alumni experience, because so many people get offended or get broken up or get put off because someone left the business for a brighter light or for some more money or whatever. It's okay. People make dumb decisions. Give them the chance to make a dumb decision, but give them the opportunity to come back. Because what we're seeing now is that there are a number of people that will leave you that could go to another organization because they were offered 40% more comp, or because they thought the leader was going to be more meaningful, or because it could have been more virtual. Absolute crock of rubbish. And what they're
We call
finding
them
is,
boomerangs, Paul.
and the brand falls apart. But then they go, oh my gosh, the grass did look greener. But give them an opportunity to feel dignified about coming back to you. Let them be a boomerang and look better at where they came from, because you gain all that experience that they had from before. But more importantly, you don't have to recruit them so heavily. The effort's so much less, just because you didn't break up with them in a horrible way. You gave them a chance to be dignified the way they left, but dignified the way they come back to you. And I think that's a key differentiator in the next 6 months, because there are a number of organizations either in secondary or tertiary funding opportunities that have sold, or more importantly, spent all their money on net new talent without being able to realize the revenue opportunity or marketing opportunity. And those, they're being left high and dry. You know, a well-known fintech organization that's part of Canada Life just found themselves short and had to lay off 250 people. Incredible opportunity if you're in insurance and finance management right now, to pick up some great developers, great recruiters, great HR people, great customer service people, because they didn't manage the revenue opportunity properly. So again, there's no lightning bolt here, but what there is a very human bolt, which says, be great leaders, let people go away, but let people come back, let your existing team grow, and more importantly, augment where you've got a gap and get to market quicker with an augmentation partner. And I think then the world's going to be a great place. And I know I'm dumbing it down, but that to me is where you're getting business smarts as opposed to being business foolish, because we're always going to have some of these conundrums. Next year will be something else. And the change is constant, and it's just being true to yourself and going, we can manage through it. It's fine.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Paul, we just recruited back a marketing manager that left the business 5 or 6 years ago, and she ended up opening up her own small agency, raising 2 kids, and she was just ready to come back. And we brought her back, and she's been, fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome.
Not only does she have the insurance experience, but she has the experience of working with GBG. So she was really able to hit the ground running, and she's grown so much since she left. She just has gotten so much more experience. So bringing her back at a higher level with the knowledge that she brought, she's teaching me stuff that I didn't even know about the company. So it's been a win-win.
Great experience. But again, it's creating that experience, that stickiness with people. It's a people stickiness thing. Sorry.
You hire good people to start with, right? I feel like it makes wanting, when they leave, like you're saying, Paul, bringing them back in just feels like we had the same thing on our team, Linda, where we had someone come back, and it's the same thing. They have the opportunity to grow, learn more, see how people do things differently.
Yes.
And there's a lot that they can bring back to you, and they have the knowledge and depth of experience with your organization, and it's a win-win all day.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I have to say, I learned a lot going from department to department, role to role at Verizon, but there's something about leaving a company and going to work for another company and seeing how their processes and their business operates, and then taking that skill set to another company and so on and so on. So I think gone are the days where you're with a company for years and years and you just move up the corporate ladder. Like, I really think you learn so much more from taking best practices from one company and taking them to another company and just continually developing your skill set.
One thing I'd implore you all to do is to look at what they call employee resource groups, ERGs.
Yeah.
And that's where you're able to identify with your diversity, or more importantly, your inclusion tapestry, because it's a really good way to market, to broadcast opportunities to the broader audience. Because sometimes people will see your business as being all female or all of color or all of whatever. And it can disengage the candidates or disengage your talent in the marketplace. So the broader you look, the opportunity you give people to engage with these disparate employee resource groups also allows you to take the advantage and to take the high road with the Canadian message and the I'm going to say North American message, to be more inclusive as employers and to be more sensitive to some of their individual interests and reasons for living.
Wonderful. Well, this went really well. I mean, at first we weren't sure. Paul's internet was choppy.
Yeah.
It's not so bad. So apparently he has
you
like
can't
a
shut me
separate
up.
iPhone.
You did great. I don't think there was any hiccups at all with it.
Yeah, it
the
really
audio.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. This is really good. I mean, if you guys want to add anything right now, and we can, but I think that if I were listening to this as a marketer or as somebody that listens to our stuff, I think they're going to get a lot of value out of this. The three of you guys taking the time to talk with me and share your experiences and your background and how you're kind of getting through the current environment and the success that you've had, I think is just really going to help others. Paul, you had a really good summary there too, like your run. It was like a perfect summary. That's mainly why we invited you, but just really good stuff.